Support for WUWM podcasts comes from Johnson Financial Group, helping customers build financial plans around their unique goals for over 55 years. More at johnsonfinancialgroup.com. Johnson Bank and Johnson Wealth Inc. are Johnson Financial Group companies.
From 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Today, we'll look at how ICE agents in airports are impacting some people's decisions about travel.
To be frank, we're advising folks not to take that risk at all if they're undocumented, if they have a pending case, if they're out of status.
Then we'll learn how PFAS remediation money will be rolled out in Wisconsin. Plus, learn how UW researchers are working to get people better informed about AI.
This technology is here. It's now, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to continue to grow and expand and be integrated into everything that we do.
All that's coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Thanks for joining us today. TSA agents are again receiving paychecks after going more than a month without pay. The partial government shutdown, which stalled their pay, led to agents calling out and quitting, and caused some of the longest wait times at airports in the TSA's history. Despite payment returning to agents, the Trump administration says ICE agents will remain in some airports. ICE's presence is impacting some people's travel plans, including one DACA recipient who spoke with WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez.
2 weeks ago, my parents' car broke down in their hometown of 200 people in Mexico.
This is Yuseli. As a DACA recipient, we are only going to use her first name here.
And if you need anything, absolutely anything, you have to travel at least 2 hours into the nearest town that has a gas station, that has...
Or an auto parts store, or a hospital. So her dad asked around town and found a motorcycle to borrow.
And he is not a motorcycle user whatsoever. And my dad had a motorcycle incident where he fell over the mountain, basically, off the cliff.
His body, as you can imagine, was pretty broken up, Yuseli says. Severe brain injury, 4 ruptured ribs, and a lung. And being in rural Mexico, he didn't even get to a hospital for 3.5 hours. Yuseli's parents came to the U.S. for her and her future when she was 5 years old, eventually making a home in Milwaukee. And even after they self-deported a few years ago back to Durango, which is a whole nother story, they've always had an incredibly special and close bond.
I'm an only child, not by choice, and I grew up like if they were my siblings. Like, I was very equal to them. My dad valued my voice. We had dinner table conversations. We talked about politics. We talked about boys, like he was there for my first heartbreak. He bought me chocolates. Like, he gave me so many tools, and back home, he has all the tools. Like, his tool shed is full of anything that anybody could possibly need. And when, like, the water tower hoses break in the town, my dad will be the ones to go repair them. And it's kind of a weird way to see that my town misses him, because 2 days ago, a water hose broke, and we have a WhatsApp Asuntos de Agua group chat in our pueblo, and I got added to it because I'm nosy. And one of my uncles uploaded a video to the WhatsApp asking if people had a spare hose, knowing, right, the entire community, all 60 phone numbers know that my dad has rolls and rolls of spare hoses. But nobody will go into his workshop without him.
One of the first things Yuseli did when she found out about the accident was apply for emergency advance parole. This is a way for DACA recipients to legally leave and re-enter the U.S. The problem was that even that system is so backlogged with cases that she was told it would be a 4-month wait to even hear back if she was approved. And that is 4 months that her dad does not have. She said she recently traveled back to Mexico in January of this year with regular advance parole, which not even that went smoothly. On her way home, she says she was held and questioned for over 2 hours by federal agents. And now that ICE agents are in some airports, she feels even more anxiety over the potential of flying.
You know, that experience that happened to me in January really shaped how I would consider traveling now. And it's a risk that we all have to take, right? My parents took a risk when they brought me here at 5 years old. And now I have to make the risk of going back and potentially saying goodbye to my dad, or saying goodbye to my dad through a screen, but being safe from any sort of repercussion that might happen at an airport. And every day that my dad lays in the ICU is like, I think, just a ticking clock for me to be able to travel. And although I did apply for emergency advance parole, like I said, like the wait time is so long that anything could happen to his health, whereas anything could happen here in the States that could worsen travel for people.
Since Jimmy spoke with Yuseli, her father has passed away without her being able to travel to see him.
Yuseli's story is not uncommon. Family members who are sick, maybe they're dying, and maybe they're doing it in a different country. What's different is now ICE agents, whose primary work is immigration enforcement, are patrolling some U.S. airports. This all happened because a partial government shutdown meant TSA workers were not getting paid, leading to staffing shortages and long lines at airports. And even though Trump has signed an executive order to pay TSA agents, getting them back to work, we know that over 500 of them have left the job over that time. So, what should people with vulnerable statuses know about air travel? And what should all of us know about what to expect in our airports?
My heart goes out to her and her family, because talk about a moment where all of us can identify that if we have a loved one and we want to be near them in their hour of need.
This is attorney Melissa Soborowski. She's the managing attorney at Soborowski Immigration Law in Milwaukee.
To create an environment where someone who is here lawfully and they don't feel safe being able to do that, that's incredibly un-American and just frankly depressing to know that we're even where we're at right now.
What is ICE doing at airports? What job are they filling, and what job are they even capable of filling at our airports?
So everything that I have read and heard explains that they're filling in for the need with TSA currently calling off or quitting altogether because of the government shutdown. As far as what need they're actually fulfilling, they're supposed to be fulfilling assistance to TSA, but a lot of TSA folks are saying that that's not even the case, that they're not properly trained to conduct the searches and assistance that is needed.
And at the end of the day, there's still, as you've pointed out, immigration enforcement, which we've seen as early as the first day in some international airports. There was the viral video of when ICE targeted and detained the mother in front of her 9-year-old daughter in San Francisco. I'm curious what you're hearing from clients with vulnerable statuses, and kind of how are you guiding them through potentially having to travel through some of these airports?
Well, let me tell you about a call I just got off of. A woman, a U.S. citizen, she married a gentleman from Mexico, and he just recently, in the last 6 months, got his residency. They want to travel to Florida in order to see his son graduate from the Navy. So here is her son, a young man that her husband helped raise. And he is in the military, ready to serve for our country. And my client, the resident, is afraid to travel. So I did advise him that I think he is safe in doing so, but it breaks my heart that he just wants to see his stepson that he raised graduate from the Naval Academy, and the fact that ICE is present in these airports is giving him any kind of reservation. To me, that seems sad. And to be frank, we're advising folks not to take that risk at all if they're undocumented, if they have a pending case, if they're out of status, if they have an open or prior removal order or are in removal proceedings, or if they have any kind of concerning criminal history or open criminal issue. So we're just categorically telling folks that that is not a risk worth taking.
If folks have no other choice, let's say it's maybe life or death, or there's just a decision they're not willing to take to not travel, what would you say to someone in that situation?
We're telling them to carry with them the documents that show that they are in status, whether they're a legal permanent resident, a U.S. citizen, or if they have some sort of temporary protection. So making sure that they have those documents in order and a valid passport from their home country. We're also reminding folks to acknowledge what their rights are, know their rights as far as what they would be in any other public space. You still have the same rights to remain silent, to ask to speak to an attorney if you fear that that encounter might result to something a little bit more.
Something else that we've seen with ICE in these spaces is people are already filming them because they are without face masks. So they are exposed in these areas. What should folks know about photography and video when it comes to airports and documentation at airports?
I would highlight that folks should do what they feel comfortable with because it is their constitutional right to film or record law enforcement. However, that right extends to public spaces alone. And I would say that airports can kind of be gray areas or gray zones in that they're both public, but some parts of them are also private or protected by national security concerns. So they should be careful to record, look to see if there are signs, and then if advised to stop filming, if they're in one of those zones, they probably should, just to keep themselves safe.
Just even thinking of how difficult and tricky this could all be going forward is you were already dealing with and trying to instruct clients on the challenges with traveling at this time with who had advanced parole or who were looking to get advanced parole. So what are some of the other challenges that you're seeing from folks with vulnerable statuses or whatever the case may be that are trying to travel that have been looking forward to traveling for a long time? What kind of challenges have you been kind of dealing with over the past year and a half?
Some of the challenges are folks that are completing a process where they have to leave the United States to conduct an interview at a U.S. consulate abroad because that's part of the process of them getting their residency. And those folks are afraid that they're going to somehow be swept up in this really aggressive movement. And then their whole process that they have put themselves on, that process is going to get derailed, and then they'll be placed in detention, which is mind-boggling because they're literally doing it the right way, as folks sometimes say. Now they're afraid that won't actually be able to happen.
Yeah, it feels like the goalposts are always kind of moving. And it feels kind of like that's been under this expansion of ICE power with the new Trump administration or the current Trump administration is we've seen that in a couple ways, right? We've seen less oversight in their operations, them detaining legal residents, not having to present identification. This list goes on. Also, we've talked about that huge increase in funding where they're completely inoculated from the shutdown. So how are you talking with clients about this agency whose powers are seemingly unchecked?
It's hard. Every day I wake up and I read the news, whether I want to have to or not, because I owe that to my clients. And then I try to guide them through something that is constantly changing and evolving and in ways that often feel counterintuitive, unconstitutional, and quite frankly, un-American. And I advise my clients every day to obtain their records, carry with them their documents that they have, create Plan A, Plan B, Plan C for all types of contingencies, and just remain in communication with us. I think that's the best we can do these days.
That was Melissa Soboralski, the managing attorney at Soboralski Immigration Law in Milwaukee, speaking with WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez. You can hear more stories on the changing landscape for immigrants in the U.S. on WUWM's Status Pending podcast. Find it wherever you like to listen. Wisconsin communities dealing with the forever chemicals known as PFAS may finally be getting some relief. Nearly 3 years ago, state legislators introduced a bill to tackle PFAS contamination in the state. Legislative action hinged on a $125 million trust fund proposed by the Joint Finance Committee. The fund was created, but legislators continued to squabble over the nuances of how those dollars should be dispersed. Finally, last month the legislature passed bills that Governor Tony Evers says he'll sign to release what has grown to be a nearly $133 million fund. WUWM environmental reporter Susan Bentz is joined by Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Secretary Karen Yun to learn what comes next with the PFAS remediation in the state.
We are hoping to focus our first area of our grant program. We have a community grant program on sampling of private wells, schools, childcare facilities, and biosolids. We're currently working to develop those programs and planning to launch them in the summer or fall of this year. And then we will have a second area of focus for sampling that will be focused on irrigation, agriculture, wastewater, and leachate from landfills. And that sampling will be rolled out a little bit later, so in 2027. Right now, we're really focused on protecting human health, disrupting exposure to people because we know PFAS is linked to cancer and developmental risks in kids. So we really want to focus on getting people clean drinking water. And then, we also have an expansion of our well compensation grant program that was authorized in the statute. And we hope to launch that in the fall or winter. So say that you are a private landowner, you sample, your municipality sets up a sampling program, you sample your private well, and it comes back high in PFAS, then you can then apply through the well compensation grant program, depending on your income level, for additional funding to replace or treat or cap your existing well. And that program is an existing program that we have been funding through ARPA dollars. That has been a high demand program. And so we got authority from the legislature to expand income eligibility. So that should help make it available to more people.
Obviously, that sampling and testing is critical. And if we consider the full $133 million, is the DNR thinking, okay, we'll use X amount for this? And if so, what is that amount? Or is that amount going to unfold as you begin that process?
Yeah, I think it's going to unfold as we begin that process. So first and foremost, we want to work with municipalities and tribes to help them sample so they really understand the PFAS contamination in their communities, in their water in particular. And then we will follow up with more of the community grant program, likely in 2027, because that's a little bit more complicated, with technical assistance to local governments to help them figure out what solutions there might be in the short and long term to address that PFAS contamination and really disrupt the exposure of people to that PFAS.
So let me give you one example. Marinette and Peshtigo, I think, was the first the public became aware of. Each setting is different, right? In that case, Johnson Controls Tyco has taken responsibility for a certain area which it feels is responsible for the, movement of that PFAS off their site. But there's a wider circle, let's call it, a wider range that the DNR is helping owners of private wells as well, who JCI Tyco doesn't think it is responsible for. And the DNR has been providing bottled water to those households. So would those people who the DNR has been helping already with bottled water, knowing that they have elevated PFAS in their drinking water, will they be put higher on the list as the monies are allocated?
I think we want to definitely address the places where there is known contamination. Marinette, Peshtigo, Stella, Campbell come to mind as places that we know are hot PFAS. And so we want to work with those communities to make sure there are solutions in place that really focus on the disruption of the exposure and getting people clean drinking water in the short term through bottled water and in the longer term through, a new well or a new connection to a municipal system, et cetera. But we also want to sample more widely across the state so we can understand other places that might be contaminated that we don't know about yet.
Do you have a sense of how much positive impact that $133 million can have over the coming, months and years? How much can be accomplished?
I hope a lot is my answer there. I think because we will be working very closely with the communities. These are grants to municipalities and tribes. We are going to work with them to try to understand if they have contamination, what that level of contamination is, and what those solutions that might be that's tailored to their community in order to provide them with clean drinking water. I can't tell you at this point how much money that's going to cost and what that's going to buy, but we're going to work side by side with those local units of government to make sure that we are doing the best we can to get the money out the door that we can. I think the legislature also intended to have any settlement dollars from future settlements that may come in to also go through the trust fund and to be administered through authorities like they gave us in the legislation. So I think there will be additional funding available over time as well.
There is a different fund, but maybe a related fund, the Environmental Improvement Fund. That's for safe drinking water, as well as the trust fund. Could a community benefit from both of those pots of money?
Yep, I think we hope so. So once the state's PFAS trust fund monies are available, projects could potentially be co-funded through existing federal funding opportunities like the EIF that you're talking about. It's going to take us a little bit of time here to set up these grant programs and make funding determinations, but there will be other funding sources that I think you could marry with these projects. Some projects like working on municipal or wastewater treatment plants are going to be more expensive than replacing an individual well. So it may require both funding sources to complete the job. The federal programs take about, as I understand it, like a year and a half to 2 years for funding to be awarded. And we're currently in the planning stages so that the implementations of the programs can take place as soon as possible in a structured way together as soon as the law goes into effect.
So the law goes into effect when the governor has signed the
Yes,
initiated.
the law will go into effect once the governor signed off on the bills. We are working sort of ahead of that to prepare. So we were authorized 10 positions that we are able to hire on. So think about people who have expertise in private drinking wells or in municipal drinking water or wastewater systems or landfills, people with expertise in hydrogeology or engineering that we're going to bring on board to be able to help communities figure out what solutions they need, so that we can then offer grant funding to implement those solutions. But in the meantime, those smaller pieces of grant funding for sampling and well compensation, we will be able to do this year.
So that will be huge for your team because they've been working with a small team of
Yes.
professionals.
Yeah, we have, over the last 20 years, we've lost about 500 positions here at the DNR for a very broad mission space. But that definitely includes our environmental management division, which is where most of this program will be housed.
That starting point, as I'm understanding it, with the sampling and testing, does the DNR have a strategy now of how they're going to move out across the state?
Yeah, so we are first prioritizing sampling of private wells. We have 800,000 private wells across the state, and also schools and daycares, just because we believe there's a lot of health risk there if there is PFAS in your water. And then we're going to work with communities to, understand those results and disrupt that pathway of PFAS when it's found. If there is high PFAS in your drinking water in those cases, we would provide you bottled water and eventually private well replacement. And ultimately, the communities will decide sort of through their application process to us for the grants, sort of where they want to prioritize their efforts.
One of the points of discussion as this legislation was debated is that component of the innocent landowner. I can only imagine that having those monies freed and available and that the DNR can begin forming its strategy in order to best use those monies. But does the innocent landowner make it more difficult to get the job done?
No, I don't think so. We did negotiate in good faith with the legislature on what those narrow exemptions to the spills law would be. Think about people like a farmer who has biosolids that were permitted by the DNR to be spread on their land, and they didn't know that it was high in PFAS because there was no PFAS condition in that permit. We have never issued a responsible party letter to a farmer or even a private homeowner in that case, in that type of situation. And we codified that practice in law. So those kind of exemptions were not types of people that we were holding as responsible parties.
If people have not been impacted by PFAS, those of us who have not been or don't know if we are being impacted by them, it may not seem as real, but obviously for communities that are dealing with the contamination, this is important news that these monies will be coming through. So is there anything else you want to clarify or to emphasize?
I guess I would just emphasize with the public, especially, to make sure that you get your water tested. It's hard to help if we don't know. And so to make sure that you are utilizing this opportunity, work with your local unit of government to get your water sampled and tested is going to go a long way in knowing and assuring yourself that you have clean water or that you need help in getting clean water. And I would just encourage people to do that so that they can be sure when they turn on their tap that they've got clean water coming out of there for them and their families.
Karen Hyun is the secretary of the Wisconsin DNR. She spoke with WUWM environmental reporter Susan Bentz. In about 15 minutes, we'll tell you about the latest cultural celebration at UW-Milwaukee's Manfred Olson Planetarium. But first, are you still not sure what to make of AI? We'll tell you how the UW system is working to educate people about its uses and keeping yourself safe in this AI age. That's coming up next on Lake Effect on WUWM. You're listening to Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Artificial intelligence is quickly becoming embedded in our society, at work, school, and in much of our online activity. Researchers across the universities of Wisconsin wanted to create a safe place to learn about AI. So they created a 7-part video series about the technology, how to use it, and what kind of mistakes it can make. WUWM education reporter Catherine Kokel is joined by Emily Laird, one of the developers of the free classes.
So, Emily, you collaborated with the universities of Wisconsin to release a 7-part series of short videos on AI. Can you tell me a little bit about them?
Sure. So I collaborate across the universities of Wisconsin with a lot of our AI experts and AI leaders. When we found out that there was an opportunity to create these courses, we jumped on it because we do so much partnership across the universities with industries, with K through 12 environments, and we wanted to create something that allowed Wisconsinites, no matter their age or background, to have a foundational literacy in artificial intelligence. First, we wanted them to understand what AI is and what it does. And we didn't want these courses to be jargon heavy. We didn't want people to need any background with artificial intelligence. So starting with what AI actually does, what it is, seemed the most natural to start. From there, we wanted people to understand where they were actually going to see AI, because one of the misconceptions is that folks will say, well, I don't use AI. The reality is you're engaging with AI every day in many applications or devices, softwares, tools that you use, because it is being built in or integrated into those, or has been for over a decade. This technology is here. It's now, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to continue to grow and expand and be integrated into everything that we do. We then wanted to make sure we moved people into how they could use it in a great way, how they could start brainstorming, drafting, learning different opportunities for how they could apply AI in meaningful ways. And then we wanted to move into the safety aspects. So how people could protect themselves, telling people what they should never share with AI, ensuring that they're protecting their passwords, their family details. We even encourage people to take on a safe word for themselves, for their families, for their friends, for their colleagues, because AI can be used in deceptive ways. And so we want to make sure that people are staying safe with this tech. And then we want to be transparent that AI can make mistakes. It can provide you incorrect information and state it in the most confident ways. And we want people to be aware of it. We want that critical thinking to be applied to artificial intelligence use. Lastly, we want people to understand AI's limitations. AI can definitely prepare you in many ways, but it's a collaboration, it's a tool, it's a partnership. We wanted to make sure for areas like legal, finance, or health decisions that we're encouraging people to ensure that AI could be a brainstorming partner, but we really want to ensure that you rely on licensed professionals for this type of work. And so that was kind of our blueprint for how we could use this as an on-ramp for folks for AI literacy to understand the basics, good use cases, and how to stay safe with this technology.
I want to go back to something that you said about a safe word, just to kind of tease that out and explain what you mean by that. That's like having an offline conversation with someone in your family saying, okay, our word is peanut butter. If you ever get a text from me asking for money or saying that I'm in the hospital, like to protect against scams, to then ask that person for the keyword. And if they can't answer it, you assume that they're a scammer or AI. Is that a correct understanding of what you mean by establishing a safe word? Or are there other applications of that?
Yes, no, that's exactly what I mean when I say everyone should establish a safe word. I think you should have a safe word with your personal family, with your friends. I think you should have a safe word with your colleagues because AI can produce text, it can produce video, it can produce sound. You can give AI 3 seconds of someone's voice and it can create audio that sounds just like them. It's important, and I even tell students in our university environment, as students live independently together in groups, if you received a call from someone who said, oh, hey, this is your roommate's friend, I can't remember the code to your house. Again, safe word. If you don't hear that safe word that you have, you should not give out these codes to cars. This is just a new level where AI could be used for scams in nefarious ways. And it is important that we protect ourselves against that. And so I think sometimes people feel like it seems tinfoil hat that I'm saying these things until it happens to you. And then the advice is very real and you wish you would have had it.
Wow, such a good point to have also a safe word with colleagues. I didn't even think about, I mean, the hundreds of scam emails and AI generated emails that the average worker gets, to have kind of a safe word to understand, like, okay, I'm actually interacting with my colleague. That's so interesting. I'm going to take a second to reintroduce you here. Today we're hearing from Emily Laird at UW Stout about a series of short videos she helped produce with the universities of Wisconsin about AI. I wanted to ask, there are some serious critiques of AI, its environmental impact, the ethical considerations that people are dealing with as they are using this technology. Does this series talk about those limitations?
We don't go heavily into those limitations in that space. And we went back and forth about this, and our team is certainly not devoid of that knowledge. We host a lot of educational information about it. So we actually host what's called the AI Weekly Meetup, which is every Wednesday from noon to 1, where we dig into those issues much deeper. And it's a global audience. And so we do a lot on those aspects with experts from across the field. But in this instance, we recognize that this tech is here. It's now. It's free in a lot of instances. And folks have it on their phone, on their web applications, in the tools they use, in the software they engage with. And we wanted to ensure that we're creating a literacy on-ramp with this. We recognize and understand there's impacts to sustainability. There is definitely ethical questions that come from much of this technology, but this technology will continue to be developed. It is going to continue to grow as we look at investment across the globe, from compute to data centers to chip development. And so it is our responsibility as the universities of Wisconsin to ensure that all Wisconsinites have basic AI literacy when engaging with these tools.
So I think a lot of people are kind of in need of reminders of how to spot AI in their life and how to use it responsibly. Could we do a little rapid fire round of things to look for to tell if something's real, or general AI hygiene tips?
First, you should always assess whether you should be taking a problem to AI or not. That's important. That critical thinking step. Is this an AI question, or is this a question that I should just ask a human? The other thing is And it's a new world of scams and phishing with AI. So if someone you know is reaching out to you and asking for money or Roblox gift cards, it could just be an AI trying to scam you. And this can even involve a phone call or a video. AI is very integrated into these other forms. It's a multimodal technology. There's other aspects to think about too. What type of data is the AI collecting from you? So if it's asking for social security numbers, banking details, passwords, student records, or even health information, you should not be giving those to an AI space. There's other areas too to think about from visual AI. So oftentimes when you see an image that is not real, there'll be some form of an AI generated watermark. That's not always the case. We have to be skeptical now more than ever of what we see. Sometimes online videos are short, they're showing one perspective. It can oftentimes be an AI. Other times there's just visual tells. A hand may have 6 fingers instead of 5, those types of things. So we just have to be more critical now more than ever. But the biggest thing is to use well-known tools, avoid sharing confidential data with these spaces. You need to verify important claims independently of the AI. So if there's something that's truly critical to your role or a decision you're making, AI should not be the final decider for you. And you also should always treat any output from AI as a draft, not the authority of it. We're partnering with these tools. We're using our own human critical thinking and expert knowledge. And you should always anonymize text when possible when working with AI.
Thanks so much for those tips. Is there anything else you want people to know about the future of AI or what they can do now to prepare?
Sure. I just would add that AI literacy is such a critical next step. Everyone needs it. What's so great about the ASAP passport is that we've given you a 7-step video on-ramp to really understand artificial intelligence and have a just foundational grasp of it. If you visit the website wisconsin.edu/ASAP, there's also additional AI offerings if you want to take your education further around AI. It's just a great place to start for so many folks. There's just so many people that are the conduit between this technology and different populations of our state. And right now, we just can't afford to treat AI literacy as peripheral because it's quickly becoming part of what it means to be educated in these spaces.
Thank you so much. The very real and not AI-generated voice of Emily Laird at UW Stout. Thanks so much for chatting with me about this today.
Thanks, Katie.
Emily Laird is an AI integration specialist at UW Stout. She spoke with WUWM education reporter Catherine Kokel. Need some flexibility for when you listen to Lake Effect? You can hear us on demand. Find us as a podcast wherever you like to listen, to download, and enjoy on the go. We'll take one more break, and when we return, we'll get a preview of the Manfred Olson Planetarium's latest program, Arabian Nights. That's next on Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. This is Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. The UW-Milwaukee Manfred Olson Planetarium continues its celebration of different cultures and their connection to the celestial this month with Arabian Nights. Every Friday, presenters Mohamed Mash from Algeria and Mona Saeed from Lebanon will join planetarium director Jean Creighton to talk about their homelands. From food to music, scientists, landscapes, art, and so much more. Jean, Mohammed, and Mona join me now to share more about the program, and Jean begins by explaining the Arabic connection to the stars.
Many of the stars that we can see in the night sky are of Arabic descent, the name that is, and I like to point out a couple. The one that I want to start with is a star called Algol, which means demon star. And the reason this has its name is because it's a variable star. For most cultures around the world, when they looked up, stars were like friends. You could hold on to them. They were there and constant. But this star changed its brightness, which made it suspicious. And I hear with delight that apparently among children, Mona and Mohammed tell me, it is a bit of the ghoul star will come and get you. So it remains to this day. That is one star. The other star is called Aldebaran. It's part of the Taurus constellation. So it's the reddish star on one of the tips of the V of Taurus near Orion. And it means follower, because over the course of the evening, it will seem like it's chasing the seven sisters, also known as the Pleiades, in the sky.
Mona, can you share a bit more about Algo and your association with that and your mom?
So like growing up, if anyone was too loud or they're being really aggressive, they're like, "Oh my God, you like مثل الغول, like you're like a demon. Like what's going on?" That's kind of when she first said that, I was like, "Oh my God, this is bringing back childhood memories."
Full circle up into the sky. Now, Mohammed, you and Jean have presented together a few times over the past 8 years or so. Can you share how you'll be adding to this program through your Algerian heritage?
Yeah, we've done this for 8 years now. We do it like year by year, sometimes 1 year. We skip.
It looks a little different, every time.
Yeah, but every time I had the chance to talk about Algeria and my region, I don't hesitate. I look for those chances actually, and I go there. It's a passion of mine now. I think it's becoming a habit. I'm worried if I graduate, I won't be able to come back. I don't know, that Jean has a say in that.
You'll have an open invitation.
A lifetime membership. But yes, so every time I bring new things, there is so much culture and so much differences in Algeria. So every time I try to bring something that was not brought in the previous presentations. So if you've attended before, don't worry about repetition. It's going to be a new whole thing, hopefully. But it's going to be passion and so much culture and differences.
And outside of this program, you've also contributed other talks bringing and sharing culture at UWM. And you brought an Algerian inventor to campus, right? Can you share more about that?
Yes. So actually, Mona is the president of the AAAEA, and we host a lot of events. We were pretty active. This event was about patents, so we brought few lawyers and inventors, and also this huge inventor, Algerian inventor with almost 2,000 patents around the world, Dr. Belqasem Habba, and in Algeria everybody knows him, and in the Arab world. He came in and he gave a beautiful talk and also advice to everyone. And what I want to say more about this person is it could be an idol for anyone because he started from zero. He started from the ground. He lives in the center of the desert. There's nowhere. Even electricity was not provided to them back in the days. And then he made his way through. He moved to the capital city, studied, and then moved to the States. Studied in cold weathers. And then he decided, no, I belong to the desert. So he moved to California. He continued his education there, and he worked for huge companies and so on.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, Mona, you're from Lebanon and are also contributing to this program, sharing more about there's food, music, art. So let's start with music. You're going to present more about the singer Fayrouz.
Mm-hmm.
What are your favorite things about her that you want to share with others?
I think her as an artist, she's just amazing. She pretty much is a big symbol and a big icon for Lebanese people, especially the Lebanese diaspora. So for those of you guys who don't know, Lebanon has 5 million Lebanese people living inside of it, but 15 million living outside of it. And that's because during the Civil War, a lot of Lebanese people ended up migrating elsewhere for more stability. So it's a really big way for people to connect back to their roots and back to their culture. And a lot of her songs are very nostalgic. We listen to them in the morning, in the evening, when we're trying to wind down, or even just when we want to connect back to our roots. One of my favorite songs of her is actually called Li Beirut, and a lyric of that part of the song is من قلبي سلاما لبيروت, which translates to, from my heart I send my greetings back to Beirut. من قلبي سلام لبيروت. And so that song especially is such a big factor or symbol for Lebanese people living abroad. It resonates more than it would for the typical Lebanese living within the country.
Yeah, I love the connection part, but also how you can tie it into rituals in your day-to-day, right? Like music is such an important part to do that. And Mohammed, you're also going to share some music with the audience. Can you tell me more about Cheb Khalid?
Yeah, Cheb Khalid. So to start with, we call him the king of Rai. And before we get to Cheb Khalid, we have to identify what Rai is. It's a genre that is popular, I guess, all over the world. And it's thanks to Cheb Khalid and some fellow singers in the time. So Rai means opinion. And what started the Rai music is women, actually. They started gathering when they have problems. They would gather in a specific place. Somebody in the middle would play some type of drums called gallad. And then everybody in the gathering would share their opinions or complain or say whatever. And then it keeps cycling. And at the end of the day, they come up with a song. And then that became heritage. So Cheb Khalid and some others like Cheb Mami and so on, they brought these songs and then they introduced some other instruments, modern instruments like big drums and electric guitars and pianos and keyboards. And then they made Rai actually go worldwide. And maybe what's interesting also, a lot of people don't know this, but there is a song, Spanish song by Mark Anthony. It's called Vivir la Vida. That is actually a cover of a song made by Cheb Khalid called Si la Vie. The Anthony song was 12 years ago, and Cheb Khalid's song was 13 years ago. And that's on a side.
Yeah, no, I love the influences that span the whole world. And food, of course, is an essential part of culture and connecting with other cultures. And both of you have favorite things that you're going to talk about. Mona, we'll start with you. What's the favorite dish that you're going to share?
I get stuck between something we call wara anab, which is grape leaves, and then kibinayi, which is literally translates to raw meat. And I know it doesn't sound appetizing, but I promise you, if you taste it once, you will become addicted and obsessed. Wara anab is easy for me to get because obviously my mom's here with me in Milwaukee, so she makes it for me all the time. Kibinayi is harder because it has to be, it's like a sushi grade of meat, for example, but like obviously with the raw meat version. And so I only really get to eat that when I'm back home in Lebanon. And that's the first thing that I ask my grandmother to make on arrival. I'm like, the day that I land, that is what I want for dinner and nothing else. Yes, please, literally. Bring it to the airport as you're picking me up.
Yeah. That's amazing. And Mohammed, you're going to talk about the importance of tea, which spans so many cultures, countries, and for you, what does it mean to you?
Correct. Matter of fact, I just was yesterday talking to somebody who doesn't know tea, and I told them that I will make you guys tea. I just need to learn before I make it. She's like, oh, it's just tea. It's like, no, it's not just tea. This tea is different. It takes a long process to make it. It involves some movements and some pots and so on. But what makes tea special in Algeria and also in Morocco, Tunisia, and all the Maghreb region is it could be a breakfast in the morning. It could be just before food, waiting for lunch or dinner to be prepared. It could be also after lunch, so you can help digest. It's also something you will drink in the evening with some sweets when you gather. Also at night, if you want to go on a walk, you grab tea and walk. If you want to sit by a beach, you can also grab tea. So it's a drink that's available everywhere and any time too.
And to tie all the components of sharing culture, stories, of course, are a big thing. And Jean, you're going to share some of your favorite takeaways from 1001 Nights. And while we won't get into a full breakdown of a story here on the radio today, for anyone who's listening who's never heard of 1001 Nights, what is that collection?
Well, the premise is that there was a very jealous king who would marry women and kill them after a day. So one person realized, well, one woman, I can get my chances better if I tell a great story every day, and then he'll want to hear the continuation, right? So Arabian Nights 1001 is sort of many, many stories that are put together in a collection. And to prepare for the program the first time around, I was able to find my mother's copy. She was given it, I assume, for her birthday. It's inscribed by my grandparents, and the date is 1948. So it's thrilling to me to sort of read this beautiful edition, and I'm going to look at my notes and decide, there's too many stories. You can't tell 1,001 stories, but to kind of pick the pieces that I think are most thrilling for a story.
Well, it sounds like there's a wealth of things for people to learn about and take away for Arabian Nights. But for today, Jean, Mohammed, and Mona, thank you all so much for joining me to share more.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Jean Creighton is our regular astronomy contributor and the director of UWM's Manfred Olson Planetarium. Mona Saeed and Mohammed Mash will be joining Jean as speakers for the planetarium's Arabian Nights series, which takes place every Friday in April. You can find more information at wuwm.com. And that wraps up Lake Effect for today. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. If you've missed any of Lake Effect this week, you can find all of our conversations at wuwm.com. If you'd like to take the show on the go, just download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow on Lake Effect, we'll bring the latest story in our housing series, Keys to Home Ownership, where we're looking at housing solutions in the city. Join us to learn how Axe Housing has helped hundreds of families in Milwaukee buy homes. That's on tomorrow's show, but for today, thank you so much for joining us right here on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.